listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
The GM Shuffle, Michael Lombardi. I'm Patrick Meagher. We're back, boys. Hey, by the way, Cousin P, is he hanging out with Big Ben in London, Michael? Is he sightseeing? What's your boy doing? Nice to see you, Michael.
It is so good to see you, Patrick. Thank you. We appreciate Grace for filling in, but it's so good to have you on the GM Shuffle and to be with us. It was a long time. I mean, it's been a long time, and I'm good to catch up with you. I see that things are going well in Los Angeles. We're on different coasts, but one thing we had in common is we could connect, and Dougie P can't connect. So that's the one thing we know. When the owners when the head coach is talking about culture that he sets, like, what are we supposed to think about? Like, okay, Doug, who did this? Like, let's call the culture police up and have them come in and sweep the building. Like, seriously, like, that was embarrassing. And I got to tell you, I gave out as one of my picks, I gave out Jacksonville as one of the picks. I thought they would play good over there. I thought that they were used to playing good over there. I mean, they quit. Even their players thought they quit, Patrick. And to me, it goes back to what I've said since he was in Philadelphia. Doug's a nice guy, but there's no details. All he is a play caller. He just checking that box off. You see him with his pen. The team has no attention to detail, no discipline, and most of all, no toughness whatsoever. And you know what, Patrick? He got I don't know if you saw this, but he got the vote of confidence from the owner.
Which means he gone, which means he's done. Like, it's funny. Yeah. Elliot said he wants a culture change. It's good that he's hanging out in London with Winston Churchill because he's going to stay there. I mean, there is, like, Michael, they gave up. You can't, I understand the vote of confidence. That essentially means he's done. They gave up yesterday. That was embarrassing.
Yeah, it really was. And now they got to lay over it and stay in it. I mean, they're probably going to go to the War Museum and watch it from there. I don't understand why the owner felt compelled to give a vote of confidence when he knows this is going down the drains. I mean, you and I were together. We watched the Urban Meyer fiasco together when we did the Lombardi line together. That was ugly. This might be uglier because Urban wasn't qualified to be the head coach. They hired these people under the pretense they were qualified. Right. Like, it's worse than it was with Urban. I mean, and they're shocked the quarterback's not playing good. And look, I'm not defending Lawrence because he's got his own problems. But this is a team that looks like they don't practice. It looks like they have no toughness to them at all. And I think this week, and it'd be interesting to see what you think, I think week 6 was the demarcation part of the good coaches who've been practicing got their teams better. The shitty coaches who don't know how to prepare a team, their teams aren't getting better.
Well, then we should move to your part of the country and the NFC East and Mike McCarthy and my boys, the Lions. So what the hell was that? That was a historic blowout, 47-9. Now, we started to see it come together with the Lions in that offense, and they're a wagon right now, Michael. But 47-9, there are going to be questions about your boy, Michael McCarthy. And that's ugly. 3-3. That division right now, we could have a broad conversation. It's gross. Outside of your boys, the Commanders, sitting at the top.
It's funny because I thought Detroit didn't have an identity earlier in the season. When they let him throw it 50 times against Tampa, I don't know what you felt there. I felt like, look, this team's too freaking good. They have such a great offensive line. And again, you and I remember when they drafted Sewell and Chase went before them. We both said that's going to help their team, and it did. I mean, Sewell. Did you see him on the play that they ran? What a great design! How good was that? Right? I mean, and how quick was he? I didn't see the illegal motion either. I didn't see him downfield or whatever they called. But anyway, when they punch you in the mouth, and I think one of the most underrated players in the league is David Montgomery. I mean, I think this guy is in the top 5 running backs. I don't give a shit. He breaks more tackles than anybody. And they finally got their identity back. That's Detroit. Dallas, to me, McCarthy's going to take the blame. But the blame lays at Jerry's feet, okay? They go into the offseason. They get their asses kicked. They have no defensive tackles. Maisie Smith sucks. They can't play him. Their linebackers are small. Right? They're not very good on defense. And then they don't have a running back. I mean, how do you go into the season without a running back? And he said, well, we couldn't afford to sign Henry. I promise you, if you put Henry on this team, they look different, don't you think?
100%. And I mean, you look at the balance though quickly on Detroit. They just extended Montgomery. What was Chicago thinking letting him walk? They just extended Montgomery. No, he goes for 80. Gibbs goes for 63. Change of pace. Just awesome. That first touchdown run by Montgomery was ridiculous. Goff, 315, 3 touchdowns. Like, Detroit is serious. Detroit and Baltimore in one bucket, Michael. But the Cowboys on the other side, you're watching that offense. They just don't have options.
No, they can't run it. You can't let Dak throw it 50 times. We said that all the time. You can't this is ridiculous. Dak's going to run it, throw it 50 times. Let's go. 1 second. I want to go back to, I thought Detroit, Brad Holmes, great. I mean, this Tim Patrick kid missed 2 years. We know he's got elite hands. He's not the fastest receiver, but what he does is convert first downs. I mean, he catches the ball in traffic. You've always liked that play. That player to me fits who they are. He's tough. He fits exactly in what they do, and he's dependable. He's like having another Laporta on the field. He's not a tight end, but he's so dependable in catching the football. For me, Dallas, I just don't get it. Like, I don't see how Dallas could sit there and think Zeke. Say you pay Zeke $3 million. All right, Henry cost you $12. You mean to tell me you can't find $9 million of loose change somewhere in your couch? I mean, come on. You got Brendan Cooks making what? What's he making? $10 million? Would you rather have Henry or Cooks? I mean, it really comes down to when people start talking about this salary cap bullshit, it really comes down to choices. And it's the same thing in college football, right? If the guy at Florida State would have picked Cam Ward, nobody would be on his ass, but he chose DJ, right? It's all choices. Everybody gets so hung up on the cap. No, it's choices. If you're paying player Y, then that's your choice, and you don't want player X, that's your choice. But don't say we don't have any cap room. Like when the Giants don't want Barkley, they say it's too expensive. No, you made a choice. You gave Illuminor $1 million more than you had to give him, right? You've signed Van Roten for $2 million. That's a choice, right? You gave Singletary whatever you gave him. You could have found the money if you made the choice. Like it's really just a cop out.
Dallas last year, I think you thought maybe a bit of an overachieving team. 3-3 right now. Where is Dallas right now?
I don't think Dallas is a good team. See, I think this is where the betting market gets screwed up. So Dallas plays Pittsburgh last week, right? And they win the game. Tolbert makes the catch on 4th down. All right, great play. But I think if Pittsburgh had Nate Herbig in that drive, if he didn't pull his hamstring, they would have sacked Prescott. They wouldn't have won the game. At some point, there would have been a negative play. But the line stayed at 3.5 to 3. And I took Detroit in this game. I didn't care if it was 3.5 or 3. I took Detroit and Russo. I think it was 3 in Russo when I took it, because to me, I think Dallas was overvalued. I don't think they're good enough. They have no running back. They have to throw it 50 times. Right? For all the reasons everybody picks Pittsburgh, they should have picked Detroit. Dallas can't run it. They're not going to run it against Detroit. Dallas has got no real ability to stop the run. It was pretty obvious. They gashed them. I mean, how about the play Brady showed on there and said, look at the push of Detroit's offensive line when Montgomery runs in for a touchdown. I mean, that's what we're talking about, physicality. Look, I was wrong on Dan Campbell. I thought he was a knucklehead.
Me too.
In terms of that, but he's way smarter than I gave him credit for, and I love his toughness of his team. You got to give him credit for that. So I just don't see Dallas as a good team. I think they got holes in their secondary. Here's what happened. Last year, they played from in front. They had 124 first-half point differential. So they were able to play from in front. But every game that was tight, remember we kept saying they couldn't beat a good team last year? Every game that was tight, it was because the other team could run the ball on them. They didn't fall behind. But when you fall behind Dallas, then you don't run the football. It plays into their strength. Now, look, I get they didn't have Parsons, but I think Dallas is so freaking overrated. McCarthy's going to take the heat for it. Don't get me wrong. But Jerry's got as much to say in this thing as anybody.
I was thinking about, I heard you with Russo on Friday, and you guys were talking about the Jets. And you often talk about culture. And I was watching the Lions yesterday because Campbell still struggles in game. But I will tell you, Michael, the culture with him and Holmes and just the overall macro vibe of the team, they're a problem. Like there is a good energy coming from that Lions team. And you saw the opposite of it with the Cowboys, and we might see it again with the Jets tonight.
We might, and we saw it with Jacksonville. I mean, if you were up early enough to watch the shitty game from London, we saw it there. It's all about tying it all together. And they find, look, here's the thing. You are who you want to become. If you want to become a soft team, you're Jacksonville, you practice soft. If you want to become a tough team like Detroit, you practice tough. And the Patrick signing, to me, the Tim Patrick signing, was everything that Detroit represents. He's not the fastest player. He's not the most athletic guy, but he's tough, he's durable, and he's got great hands. He fits a role for them. To me, that's when you're making elite decisions as an organization, and give them credit. Look, I'm not a Goff lover. I know who Goff is. If you get in the paint on Goff, he's going to be struggling. You know that as a Lions fan. But they do a good job of protecting Goff, right? They do a really good job. And so now he has time to throw the football. You know, they're working around their deficiencies is what I'm saying. And that's where the Dallas Cowboys, they have no way to work around their deficiencies because they can't rely on the run. They can't stop the run, nor can they run the ball. And to me, when you have those two things in your negative column, you're a shitty team.
It's all paying off. We were working together when they took Sewell and remember Chase, the splashy Cincinnati Bengal. And as a fan, you like the Chase pick, but given time, watching this offensive front, that's what we're built around. The Detroit Lions offensive line makes everything happen. I mean, it's a legitimate Super Bowl team right now.
And don't confuse that defensive line with McNeil in there. Now, I know they lost Hutchinson. That's hard. That's problematic. But that defensive front now, that's good. They can push the pocket back. They're big. They're physical. I think they're much improved on defense. I really do. And look, he stuck with Aaron Glenn when everybody wanted to give up on Aaron Glenn. I got to give him credit for that. They've gotten better. Look, his team gets better, too. Remember, the first year in the league, what did he start? 0-10, but they got better every week, right?
Yep, 100%. It feels good to be back with the big guy, Michael Lombardi, of course. This is the GM Shuffle. Download it wherever you get your podcast. We're going to start having some fun, people, so get on board. Speaking of fun, the Bills are laying a point. The Bills are pissed off. They're laying a point tonight in Jersey with Aaron Rodgers coaching the Jets. We'll discuss that, and we have to get to the Jags and your boy Dougie P. Of course, we're back. It's the GM Shuffle. Michael Lombardi.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Welcome back to the GM Shuffle, presented by Smirnoff. We do game days. Please drink responsibly. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. He, of course, is Michael Lombardi. I'm Patrick Meagher. This is the GM Shuffle. Dougie P, your boy, hanging out, Cheerio in London. We're going to get to him. Also, the Commanders, your favorites in the East. Over the Eagles, we have to get to the Eagles coming up here in just a bit. But let's go back to yesterday morning where it was ugly, 35-16. We can get to the good here in a second, and that was Caleb Williams and the Bears sitting at 4-2, Michael. But we have to have the conversation about the Jags, who are sitting 1-5. Your ownership right now, you're thinking what?
Oh, I'm thinking, what am I going to do? I mean, I'm thinking, do I call Belichick? Do I call Mike Vrabel? Like, I think the owner, Shah Khan, means well. I really do. I think he means well. I just think he's hired the wrong people. I don't think he understands how to build culture. I think he sees this as a strategic problem. He doesn't see this as a culture problem, right? And this is what happens to a lot of owners because they've never really understood how culture ties everything together. And he's never had people on the same page. I mean, look, Doug is a play caller. That's what he is. Now, remember, this would have been a lot worse if they hired Byron Leftwich, right? That's who they wanted. But Byron Leftwich wanted Adrian Wilson to be his general manager, and the owner wouldn't do that. He was committed to Balke to be the GM. And so because of that commitment, Leftwich went back to Tampa Bay. A year later, he's fired. He's still not in football anymore. So now Balke's still there. Balke takes Walker over Hutchinson, right? Because Balke values size and speed. So Balke has this opinion of what he wants to see from his football team. And then Peterson's a play caller who's never really married all three units together. It's like when people talk about these college coaches, like Lane Kiffin, who lost this week to LSU. I mean, Lane Kiffin calls plays at Mississippi. He has nothing to do with the defense, doesn't even go to a defensive meeting, has nothing, they're just completely, they're just play callers. And that's what Peterson is. But you can't have a culture with just a play caller. Somebody's got to be responsible for tying it all together. And I think that's what Khan really misses. He doesn't understand that. He keeps constantly, well, who should I hire? Who's the next guy? They're so focused on making Trevor Lawrence good that if you made the culture good, Trevor Lawrence would be good. Case in point, Detroit. Detroit isn't upset with making Goff good. They built the team around Goff's strengths, but their culture makes Goff better. See, this is what I think they all miss on. And so I think, to me, if I were Khan, I would call two people. I either call Vrabel and tell him, look, how would you build this organization out? Or I'd call Belichick and say, in 5 years, can you build me a successful organization that resembles what you did in New England? And if you give me 5 years, we'll do it. I think, to me, those are the calls. But most people are going to say hire Ben Johnson. Okay? Everybody will say hire Ben Johnson. But Ben Johnson, he's not ready to bring a culture to it yet. He's ready to call plays. See, we minimize how valuable the head coaches of all three facets. Jim Harbaugh. Should have called him last year, right? Let Jim Harbaugh go run Jacksonville's program. What do you think they would be? What do you think their record would be if Jim Harbaugh were coaching that team? See, right. Harbaugh's not an X's and O's guy. Harbaugh's a coach. He's a football coach. His team, he figures out what he has to do to win. He wants a tough team. They're going to get better. His brother's the same way. But we get so, like we do with wide receiver, we get so preoccupied. Well, we need somebody to make Trevor Lawrence better. No, we need somebody to make the fucking team better. That's what we need.
But that is my question, because I'm going to be wrong about him if it doesn't work out, Michael. The next coach coming in, do they have a quarterback? They have to keep him. They extended Lawrence, but do they have a quarterback?
Well, here's what I would say. I would do exactly the same thing with Lawrence that Detroit did with Goff. I would build the best offensive line I could build, which they haven't done. I would make goddamn sure I could run the football behind this really good offensive line.
Oh, they can't run the football.
I would stop. And as soon as you stop one run, Dougie stops calling runs. As soon as you stop a run, Doug's off runs. So take that off my list. So I would tailor the team around the run game, around playing good defense, and both lines. That's what the priority is. But, of course, they signed Gabe Davis. He dropped 2 touchdown passes yesterday. I mean, everything they do is, we got to – look, Brian Thomas is a nice receiver. This team has no tackles. Harrison, their 2 tackles can't block anybody. So, to me, I think
what's interesting?
I think you're right. That's where I'm not saying Lawrence is good, but you're right. You can't get rid of him.
No, they have to keep him. And then I'm watching that game yesterday, and I was thinking, Jaden Daniels is putting a lot of pressure on Caleb Williams, because Williams, those offensive line issues to start the season, Michael, I don't think it necessarily represented him well, because we've seen him get better each week.
Yes.
And I thought he was freaking fantastic yesterday in London. 23 of 29, 4 touchdowns. He did have the pick, but it does feel like he's starting to get comfortable, and he's a 4-2 Bears team all of a sudden.
Yeah, and all this bullshit about, they haven't played anybody. Well, they can't control who they play, but they've dominated who they played, and give them credit. Now, do I think when they play against a better defense and a better defensive front, they're going to have issues? Yeah, I sure do. He's a rookie. He's going to have that. He's going to have growing pains. But give Eberflus credit, right? From week 1 to week 6, the team has gotten better. That's what you're measuring here. You're measuring, is the team getting better, or are they just being fluky? The offense is getting better. Look, they still can't run the football. I mean, going into the game, they couldn't run the ball at all. I mean, if you took out Williams' rushing attempts, they averaged 3.2 a carry, 3.25. But they're committed to it. They have to do it. And I think, to me, they've improved at doing it. They're trying to get better. I just think you got to be able to get your team better. And Detroit and Chicago defensively has improved, whereas we're watching Jacksonville. They've made no improvement with their team from week 1. Actually, they were better in week 1 than they are right now.
Jacksonville. Yeah. That's a perfect way to frame it. Chicago has slowly gotten better, and you're starting to see something build. It's a long-ass year. And Jacksonville starts well, and now the wheels are coming off. Culture. I mean, that's literally comes down to the coach. That's it.
That's what it. And what are you demanding? What are you asking the team to do? Are you holding people accountable? When you come out and say we lack our culture, we got to change our culture, you just fired yourself. I mean, you just fired yourself, because who's in charge of it? I mean, Balky's sitting up there. Balky's saying to the owner, we got really good players, because the owner came out this summer and said we have the most talented team we've ever had here. Where do you think he got that information from? You think he can evaluate talent? Of course he can. Somebody told him that. And so he's repeating it. And now Balky's sitting up there saying we got a really talented team, which they do have some talented pieces, but it's not all coming together. I think the question you have to ask yourself is if Belichick were coaching this team from last year to now, they would be better. If Harbaugh were coaching this team from last year to now, they'd be better. If Vrabel were coaching, to me, that's the question. It's the same question you ask about the Jets. Now, the Jets are a whole other problem too.
Hey, we're getting good content from you and Bill, and so we appreciate that. And shout out to my guy, Matt Patricia. You guys are killing it. But it's malpractice. He's not on the sideline right now. Like, are you telling me that the idea that Doug Peterson's a better head coach than Bill Belichick? This is just laughable.
It really is laughable that you're telling me that you hired Dave Canales at Tampa Bay at Carolina, who's never been really was a 1-year offensive coordinator, and you don't even interview, you don't even bring Bill Belichick and talk to him on the telephone. Now, we go through the Atlanta thing, and they beat up on Carolina yesterday. Good for them. That was a little bit of a struggle, but to me, it's Mike Vrabel's not a coach in this league. That's laughable. And I think what you're seeing more in this league, more than ever before, is a lack of head coaching. It's a lack of head coaching, and there's nobody demanding an identity. See, I think what happened to Detroit, I wasn't in their building, but after they threw it 50 times, I'm sure Campbell said, this ain't who we are. We're going back to who we are, right? We're going to go back to who we are. We're going to run this ball. We're going to play action pass. We're going to make big plays. We're still going to be aggressive, but we have an identity. Half these teams, you have no idea what their identity is.
Hey, let's do this before we've got a few minutes. I want to ask you about the rookies, because these are very talented quarterbacks that were drafted this year. So let's go yesterday and then big picture. And we'll start with Caleb Williams. Where are you, Michael Lombardi, right now on Caleb? If you want to give him a grade, go for it. He was great in the game yesterday in London. But overall, what are you seeing from Caleb?
I think he's improved. He's improved on his down the field passing too. Earlier in the season, he couldn't throw the ball down the field. Over 20 yards, he was just horrible. But he's really improved on that. He had the most interceptions on 20-yard downfield throws, 3, tied with. He's in this company of Anthony Richardson and the great Will Levis. He had a 23% completion, but he's improving on that. I think he's getting better. I thought the play he made yesterday to Kmet, when he was on the move and he threw the ball to Kmet, was just outstanding. I think, to me, what I want to see from him is not the first play. I want to see what he does when the second play. That's the play you can't defend.
Jaden Daniels, he's headed to Canton, if we're being fair. Look, a 7-point loss, I just felt like that's a big, you want to call it a moral victory? They hung. They hung with the team that dominated them. Offensively, the Ravens are exquisite, and defensively against the run, they're great. But when you can stop the run like the Ravens can, and Daniel still plays that well, I don't know how you don't give him an A. He's been great.
I think he's great. Look, he's the reason they're the favorite in the East. Their defense we know isn't any good, but I thought he was great yesterday. And look, they fall just a little bit short. And I think the bigger issue is, can Baltimore fix their defense? I said on this podcast for a while now that Zach Orr wasn't ready to be a defensive coordinator after 3 years, and I think that's proven. They brought Dean Pease in. I screamed for somebody to come in week 1 of the season. They needed somebody. They finally did it. Baltimore's got to tighten up on defense, because they're going to be in shootouts like they were against Cincinnati. The fact that the Giants held Cincinnati to 17 points and the Ravens couldn't slow them down, come on.
What'd you take from Drake Maye yesterday?
I thought he showed promise, but remember, he had 103 yards passing in the first half. Most of it came when the game was over with in the second half. But I thought he showed life. I thought he showed juice. He had good accuracy down the field. To me, he showed exactly what the Patriot fans wanted to see: hope. That's what he showed. He showed hope. There's hope for the future. It's going to get harder.
Yeah, no, some of those picks were tips as well. I can't really kill him for that. And then before we go to break, Bo Nix, where are you on him right now?
I thought Bo got better in the second half. You look at his numbers in the fourth quarter when the game was over, a little bit like that. He was really good in the fourth quarter. He escaped some incredible sacks. I think, to me, that was one of his best games. His fourth quarter, 15 for 19 for 189, had 143 quarterback rating. That might be the kind of play that gets him some confidence.
We got the Bills Jets tonight. The Bills are laying a point in Jersey. We've got Sirianni squawking at the fans. NFC East is a disaster. And we've got more to come here. GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
It's the GM Shuffle. Download it wherever you get your podcast, Sports, DraftKings, Stadium. Michael Lombardi, I'm Patrick Meagher. We're back, baby. It feels good to be back with the big guy.
Yes.
We're going to have some fun over this football season. And look, you can look out your window, you and Millie, and see Philadelphia. And when you do, you're going to see a very soft head coach. Let's be fair about this Eagles team. The Browns are all-time bad offensively. The Browns have an identity issue at quarterback. Stefanski's hands are tied. We'll get to that in a second. But the Eagles, Elliot just told me that after the game, your boy Nick Sirianni said, I understand fans, but I don't like it when they boo. Like, Nick, come back to earth, bro. Like, what are we talking about here? That's not a very good football team. That's a team off a bye that beat Cleveland 20-16, Michael. That shouldn't have been close.
No, it shouldn't have been. And to me, this whole instance shows the lack of maturity. You know, one thing you hope, we always talk about, are the players improving? Is this player getting better? Is that player improving? What do we need to work on? And Sirianni in 3 years hasn't improved his ability to act mature. I mean, he acts like a fool. He's going over to the sideline, tantalizing Eagle fans and nodding his head like because he won 20-16. I mean, who cares? It's like, so are you kidding me? You know, it's like when a guy celebrates after he gets a first down, his team's down by 30 points. Do you really want to celebrate for that? I mean, the Cleveland Browns, this guy can't complete a forward pass. He had 23 attempts for us, 168 yards. If he plays half decent, if Joe Flacco's playing quarterback for the Browns, Browns win the game. I'm going to just say it right here. The Browns win the game, you know? And so, you know, he went from 0 for 13 against Washington on third down, and then he was 1 for 1 on a third down chance late in the fourth quarter. Like, he had a hard time. I think he converted 2 third downs yesterday. He can't convert a play on third down. They can't keep the ball. So, but to Sirianni, like, at some point, when are you going to act mature? When are you going to show that you're in a job that's harder to get than a United States senator? That you have a lot of control over your team by your actions, by your body language, by what you do. And when you're going over there, grind it. And then what I thought was really wrong, Patrick, is that he brought his kids to the press conference. Like, look, I love having kids at the press conference, and I love having dogs in any commercial. I get that, all right? However, but don't use them as a shield. Don't use them as a shield because you knew you were going to get grilled. Like, here's where he's making a really big mistake. Like, you know, if you don't win, you're going to get fired. And even if you win, the fans aren't going to like you. Like, you're cutting down your margin for error in a city that's so volatile. Like, you're not going to win them back. Like, you're just not. I mean, Chip Kelly, if he had won games, he wouldn't have won them back. Like, he had to go, right? They had to. Right. Kelly pissed him off. They had to get rid of him. What's the same thing with Sirianni? He's not going to win enough to where it's going to matter. And I think, to me, these are self-inflicted wounds. He doesn't have to do this. Like, why would you do this?
But also, it's very apparent, and they're total opposites personality-wise. Hurts, and we can have the Hurts discussion where he's at, but he obviously doesn't respect the coach. I mean, you remember a couple of years ago, he's telling the coach to shut up when he was squawking at the fans. Like, there's a disconnect there. And if you're watching Detroit and you're feeling vibes, you certainly don't feel that watching the Eagles right now, and that's the coach.
Right. And I think what the Eagle fans were complaining about, it wasn't that they didn't win the game. I think the Eagle fans know that this level of play isn't Super Bowl level. It's just not.
Correct.
And so that's your job. Off a bye week, we got to have better Look, we all want to win 49-3 like the Lions end up doing. We all want to have a game like the Packers had. But you just coming off a bye, we expected this to be better. That's what the Eagle fans were jawing at him at. And he now, and like, look, you and I are both on Twitter. You and I, Twitter's a cesspool of people that try to engage you into a conversation by saying something shitty to you. And what's your best answer? Ignore them, right? You just ignore them. It's the same
Correct.
thing at a stadium. You don't react to it. I mean, John Mara's walking off the field in Seattle and they're giving him a hard time and he's pointing to a Super Bowl ring. John, you don't have to do that. You own the team. You don't have to do that. You own the team. Like, why are you letting them occupy headspace in your life? And this guy with his immature behavior, it's just, to me, it's not representative of the job that he holds. It's almost like he's not giving the job enough respect. This job is sacred. There's people that have come before you that are in the Hall of Fame that are incredible. You owe it to them to show respect. Like, that's what bothers me. Like, would Bill Parcells do that? Would Tom Landry do that? I mean, come on.
Let's stay in division. Listless. Only way to put it from the Giants last night, Michael. Joe Burrow made just enough plays. That Bengal defense carries them. Like, what the hell? Dayball and that offense, I thought they were awesome in Seattle. Turn around in primetime and put up 7 against a beleaguered Bengals defense. Gross performance last night.
It really was. And I think, to me, having Mike Hilton back helped them last night, because he gave them a slot corner. But look, let's be clear. You and I have been having this Daniel Jones conversation for a long time. It's the horse and buggy offense. He can't make an explosive play. Well, his longest pass play was 15 yards. If you take away the pass play, their longest play was 13 yards. Well, the only scoring drive they had to put 14 plays together. Now, I know they didn't have Neighbors. I get that. But Brian's sitting there looking at his game sheet saying, well, we had 24 first downs. But he was in 16 third downs. You and I both know, I've said this 1,000 times. You want to score points, stay out of third down. You're getting 16 third downs, you're not any good. He averaged 4.2 yards a play. They're forced him to take the check down. They know he's going to take it. Like, at some point, like, when do you decide that and of course, Brian, after they lost to Dallas, he played really well. I didn't hear his press conference last night, but their problem is quarterback. They don't want to admit it. Their problem is quarterback. Here's their second half. They have a 16-play drive that it's 61 yards to go 16 plays. Then they have an 11-play drive and they miss a field goal to go 42 yards. They come back with another 10-play drive. They don't get the 4th down. I mean, like, if you can't make a chunk play here or a chunk play there, you can't score points.
5 yards per attempt for 22 of 41. I mean, this is not good. I mean, he ran the football a little bit, but you got nothing. If you think about the division now, the Commanders are your favorites. Right behind them, the Eagles, your second betting favorite. But think about that division right now. And then you have the Cowboys, who just got embarrassed. You've got the Giants, who just got embarrassed in prime time. That's gross. It's a nasty division. It really is. Now.
Let me ask you. You watched the game. It was almost like they don't care if Daniel Jones gets hurt. Have you ever seen them run a quarterback? I mean, they call quarterback draw like twice. I think it was 3 times they call quarterback draw. I mean, they're running him. Now, look, I agree. He's better when he's running the football. But, man, oh, Lord, they're not even the least bit worried about him getting hurt. What did he have? I think he might have had, like, what do you have? He led the team in 11 carries for 56 yards. 11 carries.
Yeah. Like, you're right. It's almost like they are running him to get hurt. It's just fascinating. I was watching it last night, and I was thinking about you, because it's like making a decision to extend Jones. Essentially, you're putting your job on the line. They extended them, and here they are.
Right. It's choices. It goes back. This is the choice we made. And John Mara can say whatever they want. At the end of the day, all they've been doing in New York is trying to prove it. And you beat Seattle, who's not a good team. But, you beat Seattle on a blocked field goal. That game goes into overtime. I mean, if Isaiah Simmons doesn't block that, and credit the special teams coach for blocking that and using that play, they deserve that win. But to me, again, it's a little bit like what I said about Eagle fans. They're looking at a standard of performance that matches some other team they see. It isn't win the game, is are we getting better? And the Giants, when they play against a good defensive coordinator who knows what he's doing, he doesn't give them a play. Now maybe we get Neighbors back. But Neighbors, I think, as long as pass play is 39 yards, they don't make plays because the quarterback can't get him the freaking ball.
But did you take anything from the Bengals? Now move to 2-4.
I think the Bengals offensive line they had a hard time blocking New York last night. Orlando Brown got beat inside. The right tackle position is I thought they made a good play. Brown with the run. He scored the touchdown to cover in the game. I don't know why he wouldn't have scored the touchdown. They weren't coming back anyway. It's a 2-possession game at that point. I don't know why you wouldn't score. But I think the Bengals offensive line, I can't really tell you, are they better on defense? I really can't, because I'll tell you what I did know is Andrew Thomas is hurt, because he's too good of a player to get beat up like he did last night. He's too good of a player to get beat up like he did last night. He had something wrong with him. So to me, I think that's a problem. And look, I think Cincinnati's just not good enough in the offensive or defensive lines. I really don't.
Okay, so I'm thinking Jones, and this is random, but Tennessee, Michael, Will Levis, they know the answer. No, I'm serious. They know the answer. They have to. If they make the Jones decision to keep going with Levis, they're done. He gives the other team the ball consistently.
And he's terrible. He threw for 23 attempts for 96 yards yesterday? If anybody else if Mason Rudolph plays quarterback, they win that game.
Yes.
See, but here's the whole thing. They made a choice, Patrick. This whole theme of the pod is choices, right? They chose Brad Carthon and Will Levis over Mike Vrabel. That's what your franchise did. Rand Carthon convinced the owner that Will Levis is the guy. He's not the guy at Ocean City High School, let alone the guy at Tennessee Titans. Seriously, I can't even imagine that you would put your stock and faith. First of all, how the hell does he get a commercial? Don't you have to do something to get a commercial to be an endorser? What has he done? I don't give a shit if he puts mayonnaise in his coffee or not. Are you kidding me? This guy's terrible. Malik Willis said, I swear to God, lightning strike me dead. I thought I would have never said that. Malik Willis played better in Green Bay than this guy's ever played.
And by the way, if Hellman's wants to sponsor the GM Shuffle, we're open. Michael Lombardi's done more than Will Levis. Let's get some Mayo on the program.
This guy's not going to be in the league in 3 years, Patrick.
Oh, no.
And you gave up Mike Vrabel for this guy.
He is not a QB1 or a QB2. Will Levis is. No. That experiment is.
He's a great. He may be a great workout. You can go throw. He'll throw the ball and do all that stuff. But he's got Kyle Bowler written all over him.
I've got to bet. I need to catch up tonight, so I need your advice. Bills Jets. What are we going to get from the Jets after they move on from your boy Salah? Okay, we're going to come back and talk about that next year on the GM Shuffle. Michael Lombardi. I'm Patrick Meagher.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
GM Shuffle, Michael Lombardi, I'm Patrick Meagher. We're going to get to the NFL Week 6 awards with our crowning moments here in just a bit. We've got Monday Night Football with the Bills at the Jets, the Bills laying a point. I'll just say this, Michael. I want to talk to you about a team. I'm going to throw this on you. The Texans are 5-1. That is, go ahead and back them if you want. Feels like a soft 5-1. Didn't think they were great in the 41-21 win at the Patriots, if that makes sense. Where are you right now on the Texans?
Well, I think they're vulnerable. Look, they got fortunate to beat Buffalo 2 weeks ago when Buffalo only completed 9 passes, and they put Josh Allen back on the field. I know he cleared concussion protocol, but he didn't look right to me. I think mixing back helps them. I think they need Nico Collins, but I think this offensive line is suspect. I saw Tunsil get hurt yesterday. The right tackles miss games. I do think they're vulnerable. Do I think they're the best team in the AFC? I wouldn't bet that. I wouldn't. I think Kansas City can still beat them. I think Baltimore can beat them. I don't think they're there yet. I think they're going to have to continue to improve. Look, yesterday, I'm not going to get carried away because they're a bunch of sacks. New England has no offensive tackles. They're completely tackle poor. So any sack that you get in that game, it's like the Giants lead the league in sacks. Well, of course they lead the league in sacks. They played against Cleveland. Philadelphia just upped their sack total by a zillion because they played Cleveland this week, So it depends on who you play. I'm with you. I'm not sold. I'm not sold on CJ. His numbers, if you look at his numbers, they're not like top 3 quarterback in the league. His numbers aren't as good as Brock Purdy. They're not as good as Brock Purdy, even though everybody says he's great. He is good. I mean, the throw he made against Indianapolis in week 1 was as good a throw as you get. But I'm with you. I think there's a little bit of there's vulnerability within that 41-21 score.
A franchise that's near and dear to your heart, the Raiders, this is bad.
Oh, my God.
This is bad on multiple levels. 32-13, they lose to the Steelers yesterday, but they've got a big problem.
You know, it's so bad because people accuse me of hating the Raiders. Look, I realize they fired Mick. I get that. That happens. That's the price of doing business in the league. And they fired Josh, and Josh made a ton of mistakes. I don't disagree. When you sign the receiver and you don't have a good team, I get that, and I understand that. I accept that as the business we've chosen. I get that. But here's my biggest problem with the Raiders. It has nothing to do with family. It has everything to do with the man who taught me football, Al Davis. They have no identity. And Mark Davis listens to the wrong people. He's listening to people that have no idea what his father would have done. He listens to people that have no idea how to build an organization. He listens to people that don't understand culture. He's hiring people. He's just grab bagging. He's like the guy that got $500 and he gets to go shop for free. Like, they're just throwing shit off the rack and putting it in the cart. And to me, that's what's so disappointing, because the Raiders stand for something. The Raiders stand for something, and they should stand for something. And yet they hire this guy who's not qualified to be a head coach. I don't really give a shit what they tell me, right? He was better than Josh McDaniels because he was friendly with them. But now that friendship is over with, right? Now, what does he bring to the table? They're worse on defense than they were last year. They stink on offense. They can't run the football. He can't hold anybody accountable on the coaching staff or make them better. That's a job of a head coach. So to me, like, if I'm Mark Davis, you keep getting this wrong. You call Ken Herrock, you bring him in, you listen to him, you listen to ex-players. Like, at some point, listen to somebody who knows what his old man would have done. Like, his old man would have had nothing to do with this. It's the same reason when they were sitting there deciding on Tyree Wilson or Jalen Carter, I said to somebody in the building, I said, look, where you work determines what you do. And all I can tell you is Al Davis would have picked Jalen Carter over Tyree Wilson every day of the week. He would have bitch slapped you if you would have suggested otherwise. Now, he might have picked Christian Gonzalez. It might have picked Christian Gonzalez, but he would have picked Jalen Carter. He would have picked the most dominating defensive tackle he could have got his hands on, not some guy who projects out. And so they keep continuing to get away from it. They honor Al Davis, and then they disrespect him. They honor him by lighting that fucking torch when they should honor him by building an organization that resembles who he is. They should carry on they should bring somebody in there that says, we're going to build Al Davis, the team that Al would be proud of. Instead, they are Hugh Jackson. They got Antonio Pierce. They put Gruden in there, put Josh McDaniels. They get people that don't even understand it, including Gruden, who had no idea. I mean, all the blown picks that Gruden had as running that team, it's a joke. But they haven't been any better since he left. That, to me, is what bothers me the most. It isn't because they fired Mick. Look, I get that. We all get fired. We're all part of it. I've been fired by the Raiders, too. I don't hate the Raiders. I have great pride in that. But when you have to go back to 2002 to look at the best team that they've had, and we're in 24, something's institutionally wrong within that building.
Yeah, it's well put. Look, your boys know what the business is about. This has nothing to do with Mick getting fired by the Raiders. The Raiders
that pisses me off when people say he's holding a grudge because they fired his kid. No, I'm not holding a grudge. I'm holding a grudge against the people who were operating there because they didn't do what they needed to do. Mark Davis was impatient. Get it. I got it. But the player, he listens to the players, right? Now he's got Brady as a part owner. Maybe he should listen to Brady. Build a structure, build an organization. I mean, if there's ever going to be a team that Brady owns that diametrically is against everything he believes, if I was Antonio Pierce, would you want Brady coming to my practice? Of course I wouldn't. Brady's going to walk out to that practice and say, what the fuck are we doing?
It's time for the NFL Week 6 Awards. DraftKings, Crowning Moments. Crowning Moments is presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. And the crowning moment, this is for me on my debut here, GM Shuffle. How about the Detroit Lions for the crowning moment?
I mean, look, one of the things I said on the Russo contest this week, I wasn't going to play. I got tired of taking shitty quarterbacks, and I got tired of taking shitty coaches. And the other thing I wasn't going to do is take teams that weren't coming off a rest. I was like, okay, I know Campbell understands what he needs to do. So I give them credit. I mean, they went in there and gave an ass whooping. And I think, to me, there was resentment to losing to Dallas last year. And Campbell, as a good motivator, played that torch. And that's why they deserved a crowning moment. I think it was excellent. They dominated, and they basically have told the NFL, we're for real. Now, you know the great thing about the NFL is next week you get to prove it all over again. And now they got to play Minnesota. But I know one thing. Nobody wants to play their asses because after you play, good thing Dallas is a bye week. After you play them, you're going to be beat up.
Conversely, fraud of the week, Dallas Cowboys.
It have to be, right? I mean, like, look, and my poor Mike McCarthy, he's going to get blamed for it. He's going to get fired for it. But to me, this is a team that underachieved. They're not good enough. Like, tell me where their strength is besides who they Dak and Micah Parsons who can rush. Mike Zimmer's about ready to pull his hair out because Mike Zimmer can only do so much. You know, it's like, okay, everybody, we'll cover three buzz Ted so we can fucking stop the run, and then they gash you for 8 yards because your fucking 3 technique gets the shit kicked out of them. Like, it's a joke.
All right, Freddie Palermo, best game plan.
My man,
your boy,
Freddie.
Mr.
My
Harbaugh,
man, Freddie.
Chargers.
Still alive, too. Fred's still alive, too. God bless him. I thought the Chargers game plan was great. I thought they rushed the quarterback really well. I thought Jim, you know, he's coming off this AFib that he had, which is a problem. I experienced some of that at times too. It's not called AFib, what I have. It's called SVT. But to me, it's a pain in the ass where your heart rate goes way up based on why nobody knows. And I thought that game plan was really good. I thought he did a really good job. I thought that was 2 good coaches. See, if I was Mark Davis and I'm watching that game, I'm watching 2 really good coaches. Yeah. And then I turn on Andy Reid and I'm watching Andy Reid. And wait a minute. And I'm going to go beat these three coaches who might all be in the Hall of Fame with my man here? I don't think so.
We're going awards and we're going on the lamb. What the hell was that in New Orleans? The Saints.
You know, I mean, I thought New Orleans would have played them. Dennis Allen usually plays Tampa better, but 51 points, giving up 300 yards. I mean, they gave up over 500. They almost 600 yards. You realize that yesterday? I don't know if people realize they gave up almost 600 yards. And Baker threw 3 picks. You know,
by the way, I just think the second half total was posted. The second half total was posted at 23. And what did the Bucs do? Outscore the Saints 27-0 in the second half. So they covered that second half total by themselves, and the Saints did squat. But your boy cashed that over, so we're good with it.
I mean, how do they not go on the lamb? They start off 2-0, and everybody's in love with them, and now they've lost 4 straight. And I don't know if it's going to stop this week. I mean, New Orleans is coming in. Denver's coming in. Denver's just watched them get run on by Tampa, who typically doesn't want to run the football. But with Bucky Irvin, they did.
If you don't know, now you know. Obviously, neither quarterback is good in Vegas. That's factual.
Neither one. I mean, why are we changing quarterbacks? That's not the problem. The problem with your team is you lack fundamental techniques. You can't tackle. Do you see how bad the tackling was? How about that stadium yesterday, too? All those Steeler fans. I saw a clip. You knew it was going to happen. Tomlins comes on the field. They were there. I mean, there's nothing like Steeler fans. But the Raider fans, you would think that they would be representative. Look, I get it. The Raiders have given them nothing. If you're Mark Davis, and I know you become a billionaire and all that, but at some point, when is this enough? You just keep wasting money. You keep spending money on shit you shouldn't be spending money on. Like, you think, how much longer? Okay, let me ask you this question. When does he fire Antonio Pierce? Because there is a date on that. I just don't know when it is. You know this isn't going to last, right?
You got to move on. You got to cut your loss.
He paid off Josh McDaniels. He had to pay. I don't know if he has to pay off Gruden. I mean, at some point, maybe you're listening to the wrong people.
You got to move on. I'm sorry. Stop playing kid games. You have to move on. The players selected the coach. That never works. Get the hell out of here. All right, we've got a minute. I need a pick tonight. The Bills are going to be in a bad mood. The Jets made changes. What do you see?
I think everybody thinks the Jets are going to win, right? And I'm rooting like hell for the Bills because your boy Russo, he's got the Jets. And he went first. And I was going to take the Jets.
T-Box.
And what I hate about it is, to me, the Jets, everybody thinks there's going to be this uptick. And one thing I know about Buffalo's good at playing this woe against me card. I really do. I think they're good at playing the woe against me card. And I'm not betting against Josh Allen. This is an official pick for me, but if I were making one, initially I would have, but I hate betting against Josh Allen. I hate betting against him. I mean, he'll do something spectacular. And if the Jets can't run the ball this week, Patrick, they're never going to run the ball.
Now that I know Russo's on the Jets, Bills, baby. Let's go. You guys, will you beat his ass for me, please?
I'm going to this. I did 2 out of 3 years, although you never know it when you listen to him. You never know it. I mean, I don't know how he buys a suit. He pats himself on the back. I don't know where the hell he gets suits from.
Great to see you again, Michael. That's the GM Shuffle, of course, DraftKings Stadium. We will see you on Thursday for another edition of the GM Shuffle. See you then.